Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Contrarians. We have another special panel discussion for you today. Just to throw it out there, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing great, Marco. Good to see you.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Good
Good
day
to
to
see
talk some
everybody.
KISS.
Yeah, we have somewhat of a polarizing KISS album. We're going to go through some of the research, but what we'll do is I have a little bit of research and then I'll kind of go around to everybody and we'll get your take on the album. You can give it a yay or a nay and rank it out of 10. And then at the end, we'll kind of pull it all together and see how we scored this album. But basically, we are the Contrarians. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Welcome to our panel discussion. If you want to join any of our panel discussions, just join us over at Patreon at any tier. We also have a Ko-Fi if you want to support us without having to subscribe on a monthly basis. And then we also have t-shirts at TeePublic, and the link is in the description. And anybody here, when I call upon you, if you have anything to plug, maybe I'll do that at the end. We'll all go around and we'll plug our stuff. But some of us have our own channels here too, so that's cool. The first thing that I want to do is I want to kind of introduce the record and the research. So this was KISS's second album in the phase where they took the makeup off. So this came out after Lick It Up. This is the only KISS album to feature guitarist Mark St. John. He was briefly in and then out because he had a thing called writer syndrome, which made his hand blow up like a balloon, and he couldn't, and his knee too, I think, and he couldn't play live. I think he played half a show. I think he played 1.5 shows live, technically, or something like this. But very soon after, Bruce was in the band and he became the permanent guitarist up until the later 90s when they did the reunion thing. So this is a kind of a transitional era for KISS in many ways. They're still coming off of taking the makeup off. They kind of jump back into having some success with this album. This album did go platinum. It actually charted higher than Lick It Up, and the single Heavens on Fire actually charted higher than the single Lick It Up, which is interesting. But yeah, so this is a bit of a transitional period. I'm going to go through some of my research. So interestingly enough, this album was scored a 1 star from Rolling Stone magazine. And when Rolling Stone ranked KISS's top 10 albums, they did not include Animalize. Interestingly, Hot in the Shade appears at number 10 and is the only album after Creatures to appear on that list. Number 1 was the debut. Louder Sound had Animalize come in at number 24 out of all the KISS albums. They suggested that the best KISS song or the best songs on the album were Paul Stanley's Heavens on Fire and Thrills of the Night, and stated that Gene's songs were phoned in. Hot in the Shade, Asylum, Crazy Nights, Unmasked, and The Elder all ranked higher than Animalize on this list. The 2 worst were Peter Criss, followed by Carnival of Souls. Number 1 was Destroyer. Ultimate Classic Rock had Animalize at number 19, still a little bit low on the list as well. They suggested that with the only other remaining founding member of KISS, Gene Simmons, off chasing a movie career, Paul Stanley was largely left to cement KISS's early 80s comeback by himself with this album. Heavens on Fire accomplished that mission handedly, but without Simmons' full involvement, the rest of the album was a bit one-dimensional. The worst on this list was Peter Criss, followed by Crazy Nights. Number 1 was Destroyer. AllMusic gave Animalize 2 stars. They stated it was the beginning of the band's second unfocused period. Instead of leading the heavy metal pack with raw hard rock in the mid to late 80s, KISS seemed to be copying other successful pop metal bands, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Motley Crue, to name a few, both musically and visually. So many of the compositions are either forgettable, While the City Sleeps, or just plain embarrassing, the Spinal Tap-esque Burn Bitch Burn. Although a commercial success, Animalize was not nearly as strong as its 2 predecessors. Here's a couple of quick fan reviews. One fan gave it 1 star. Let's save you the time and aggravation here. The production is terrible. The songs are terrible. Everything about this is terrible. If there is one low light, it's Burn Bitch Burn. A song so horrible, it needs to be heard to believe someone actually wrote it. Avoid at all costs. Another fan gave it 3 stars. Whatever the case, the underrated Animalize is a far better return to form than the over-heralded Lick It Up. It certainly sounds more powerful. And another fan gave it 4 stars and stated, after the KISS unmakeup era started, the Lick It Up album broke those musical walls. Vinny is an awesome guitarist and songwriter, but he got fired. Animalize is an awesome record, has great songs, great guitar solos, and the best drum sound by Eric. He gave it 4 stars. And just quickly, I know Martin doesn't like to hear his own review, so I'm not going to quote him on this, but I'm just going to generally say that Martin gave the album an 8 out of 10 in his 80s heavy metal review guide. Basically said that it's pretty heavy. Martin liked the speedier. I guess I'm giving away your review, Martin, before you even talk. So we weren't sure if you were going to show up tonight, but
That's fine.
I'll let you review, but you gave it an 8 out of 10. So you liked it back then. So maybe you changed your mind. The album went platinum. I already mentioned that. And that's about it for my research. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to pick each one of you, and you can give it a rating out of 10 and tell me if you're for or against Animalize and tell me why. So why don't we start with Reed? Take it away, Reed.
Oh, all right. Well, I think by now, my thing is to try and place albums in context, right? So real quick, I got into KISS just before Love Gun came out back in the 70s. I don't like their first 6 studio albums. I love the 2 live albums. Saw Dynasty in concert. That was my very first rock concert. And then I completely lost touch with the band. And frankly, I didn't know that Unmasked, The Elder, and Creatures of the Night even came out until I saw a video for All Hell's Breaking Loose on MTV and went, that's KISS without their makeup. So in 1984, Animalize was the first new KISS album that I bought as it was coming out. I remember I was really excited that there was a new album coming out, and I went out and bought it as soon as it was available in my little town in Montana, which probably was not like release day. But in any case, I like the album. I'm just going to go right up front and say I am very Animalize positive. I think it sounds good. I don't know. The guy who said it's poorly recorded, when it's just a negative or a never-ending stream of negatives, I just ignore those reviews. I think it sounds great. There's a lot of top end. There's a lot of bottom end. It's not super mid-heavy. You can hear all of the instruments. The songs tend to have choirs of voices. It sounds like it's mostly Paul Stanley overdubbed multiple times in the choruses of the songs, but I think that really adds to it. It has easily the flashiest solos that KISS ever put on a recording. Now that is positive or negative, depending on how you look at it. And then on Gene's songs, the bass is quite prominent, which I think is interesting. That that's undoubtedly how Gene would have done it. I love the way the album starts. I think I've Had Enough is a fantastic song. To me, it's the best song on the album. And I think an album should come out shooting its best bullet right off the front, let you know what's coming up. And I think KISS actually did that in, Creatures of the Night comes out with Creatures of the Night. Lick It Up comes out with Exciter, which is a great song. And then here you've got I've Had Enough, and then in Asylum, it's King in the Mountain. Those are good songs to open up the record with. Heaven's on Fire is truly a keep it simple, stupid song. It's so spare that there's just not much to it. But in 1984, I was 16 years old. So at my high school, and again, not a big school, but the high school cheerleaders dance team did a routine to Heaven's on Fire. And I'm not a particularly nostalgic guy, but when you're a hormonal teenager, having the prettiest girls in school do a dance routine to a song you like is the kind of thing that gives you a positive image that lasts for years. Just throwing that out there. Yes, Gene's songs are, Burn Bitch Burn is horrible. The rest of them they're okay. Gene has always written terrible lyrics. I want to get that out of the way. Gene is not a good lyricist. His best lyrics are probably on Dynasty and Unmasked, and a lot of his other songs are horrible. On Lick It Up, he had a song called Dance All Over Your Face. I mean, that's just as misogynistic as Burn Bitch Burn. It just doesn't use that particular word. So, I'm not giving him a pass. I'm just saying, don't hold up a standard that he never met on any other album either. But some of his other songs, Lonely is the Hunter and Murder in High Heels, I think are pretty good songs. And I love the Paul Stanley song Thrills in the Night. If you think back to 1984, this is when direct-to-video movies were really starting to be a thing in the market. And of course, the big thing in direct-to-video movies, well, there were two. There was cheap horror movies and there were erotic thrillers, right? And remember that term? Thrills in the Night is like the soundtrack to any 1980s direct-to-video erotic thriller you happen to mention. It's just like a generic erotic thriller song. The absolute glee with which Paul Stanley sings makes her tingle, cracks me up every time. I do think there's, interestingly, Gene's songs, because there's so much less to them than Paul's songs, it actually leaves more space. It leaves more space for the vocal, it leaves more space for the drums, leaves more space for the guitar. And on Lonely is the Hunter, I was listening to that and going, man, it's a good solo. It's not as note dense. It's more memorable. Well, it's Bruce Kulick playing instead of Mark Vincent, or not Mark. I mean Mark St. John. Sorry, brain fart there. So yes, I like it. I only dislike one song. I really like most of the others, and I give it 7.5 out of 10.
Nice. Thanks, Reed. I got your score down there. I'm going to go next because I know Reed's got a thick skin, and I disagree with Reed. And the thing I disagree with Reed on is the flashiness of the guitar playing on this. It's interesting when you listen to all the interviews about like Mark St. John, and people talk about him like he was this incredible, like fast, speedy guitar player and could shred and all this stuff, which by no, like that's absolutely correct. But I kind of think if you go and just listen to Animalize and listen to the solos, I think Bruce's guitar playing on Animalize is flashier than the guitar solos and playing on, Asylum. Bruce's guitar playing on Asylum is flashier, in my opinion, than the stuff on Animalize. Now, there is some incredible flashy stuff like I've Had Enough, absolutely. And just quickly, like this album for me, it's interesting that we're doing this because I thought I was a lot higher on this album until we started preparing for this. And I'm actually a little bit lower on this one, and it's because of the Gene songs. I think that overall, there's maybe one Gene song I don't mind on this. All of the Paul songs to me are like almost 10 out of 10 Paul songs. To me, the album is like a 6 because I like all the Paul songs. They're all great. I like Heaven's on Fire. Thrills in the Night's a great song, like Reed said. And I like the opening track, I've Had Enough, and Under the Gun. Like there's great Paul tunes on here. And then it's like for every Paul tune, there's a terrible Gene song. And it's like, how do you rate an album where you have half really good songs and half, Murder and High Heels is the one Gene song off of this after going back and listening to it that I don't mind. The other ones are just almost unlistenable for me, or at best are like so generic that it's like, okay. And it's interesting too, because the song that comes after Thrills in the Night, which if I look at the While the City Sleeps, if you listen to the first like guitar playing in that, it almost borrows the hook from Thrills in the Night, which I know sometimes on an album you'll hear kind of two songs that sound similar, but like why would you put that song in the track listing right after the song that is almost copying? It's just kind of bad placement in the track listing for me. So it was interesting because I've always been pretty high on A, 80s Kiss, and B, Animalize. But going back and listening to it, I realized I'm actually pretty high on Paul Stanley in this album, and he produced it. I kind of wish they had a different producer to keep it away from those guys being in charge, and maybe they could have maybe done better with Gene's songs. Maybe if they had a third party in there, it could have creatively inspired Gene to do something different. I know he was making movies at the time and stuff like this, but it is what it is. I know Bruce actually played on this, and there's some interesting conversation about who actually played what instrument on what song. But yeah, overall, I'm a 6 out of 10 on this.
Okay.
Can I divert back just for a second to compare Bruce and Mark St. John as guitarists? So the difference between the two of them, and Bruce he's not as fast as Mark St. John, although he's close. I mean, he's a professional guitarist. All those guys have, lightning fingers. But the difference is Bruce will hold a note and bend and put some vibrato on it, which is to say he uses a little bit of bluesy element. And you actually remember that stuff. There are multiple solos that Mark St. John does on this album that have no slow spots. They start out fast, and they are just 16th and 32nd notes for the entire solo, and then it ends. And at least me, I don't remember that stuff at all. You just go, oh, that was fast. And then you move on to the next thing. So Asylum, I agree Asylum has better solos, but they're not, in my definition, they're not flashier, because St. John is just playing as fast as he can.
We'll agree to disagree. So I'll throw it over to John. Why don't you tell us what you thought about the album? Good point, though, Reed.
So, okay, so for me, I'm one of these original Kiss Army guys. So I got this when I was like 7 or 8 years old. So I was an OG guy. But after The Elder, I kind of was growing into, I moved on to a lot of other bands. So I kind of walked away from them for a little while. And, I heard Lick It Up. I saw the cover. I saw Creatures of the Night, of course, but just didn't bother with it for whatever reason. Heard Lick It Up, and okay. But then Kiss, I was living in Pennsylvania, and Kiss came to our little hometown, and with Queensryche opening, and I want to say, I think that one gig in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, might have been one of the only ones that Mark St. John actually played on that tour before he had to get off.
He didn't play that show, but he was there.
He was there. Okay, I wasn't at the show, so I don't know.
Oh, that was the first show of their tour. I was there. I'll talk about it later, but I didn't want to. He played a show or two later.
Right. Okay. So anyway, with me and Animalize, I didn't get it until like a couple months later, and so I got into it. I thought it was okay at the time. As I've gotten older, I'm just like, ooh, boy, this is a really bad album. I like Paul's songs. Wikipedia says on Paul's songs, except for Heaven's on Fire, Jean Beauvoir plays bass, except for I've Had Enough. I think Paul plays bass on that one. Bruce Kulick plays guitar solos on, Lonely as a Hunter and Murder in High Heels. And then of course, Heaven's on Fire is really, there's nothing flashy about that song. So, so you get Mark St. John, but this just abrasive sound of his solos. To me, it just sounds abrasive to the ears. I've Had Enough Into the Fire. I think it, like Reed says, comes out all guns blazing. I think it's a great song. Heaven's on Fire. If I never hear that song again, I'm good. I've kind of just don't care much for it. The only song of Gene's that I really like, I think, is While the City Sleeps. Lonely as a Hunter has some decent riffage, but Eggs in One Basket, Sweat. I'm just like, oh no. I just couldn't do Gene songs anymore. Under the Gun, I think, is a great start to the second side. Hitting the Highway 69 as he gleefully says before the solo. And I like that kind of that, even though the solo is abrasive, I liked a lot of the harmony stuff that they were putting into that. Thrills in the Night, good song. It's just not one of my high favorites. I'd probably just give this a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Nice.
5. Wow.
Yeah, and wasn't going to go through live statistics, but I mean, Heaven's on Fire became a live staple. And interestingly, was one of the few songs they played on the farewell tour where Ace and Peter played Heaven's on Fire live, which was a song they never originally played on. So that's interesting. So it became a song they played. It was a staple. Since Nick, you already interjected that you possibly have a story for us. So I'm going to send it over to you next.
Thanks, Marco. Yeah. Try to put it in context, like Reed did. I was 14 when this album came out. And, for me, as a KISS fan, KISS started to crater. I was a bit younger when Unmasked came out, and really cratered when The Elder came out. And then there was just like a flicker, like a little pilot light went on when Creatures came out, almost like that blue flame of a pilot light matched the blue flame of that album. And you would hear maybe Love It Loud on the radio a bit, or catch a video on Night Flight or something. But and then when Lick It Up came out, wow, you got to actually hear KISS on the radio again with Lick It Up itself. The tour did well. Got to see them. They're on King Biscuit Flower Hour. They're around the whole non-makeup thing. And I consider this album like a momentum album in that, sort of follow the same formula. They got a catchy single. You've got the guitar, hot shot playing, and sort of it seemed like Paul Stanley and dialed it in, that same formula for Lick It Up. So for me, it was a momentum album. And remember, Lick It Up came out like the fall of '83. This came out the fall of '84. So I got to see KISS for the first time on the Lick It Up tour in March of '84. And here, just a few months later, wow, we got another album and then the tour coming on. So it was like one after another, which was great. So I look at it as that they were dialing in on this momentum. You know, I got to see them. It was their first show of the tour in the United States. So it was the first Bruce Kulick show. But because there was no internet and there was no, I didn't have MTV at the time, and I don't think it would have been on MTV. And we had Circus Magazine and Hit Parader and some other things, but news traveled pretty slowly. Maybe you had radio, didn't catch that there was a substitute guitar player, Metal Shop, which is a syndicated show. But I got to the Stabler Arena for their first show early and walked in with some friends of mine, and there was this guy there with the lanyard and the backstage pass, hair poofed out, kind of like the fellow behind me, but looked a little different, wearing pink Chuck Taylors. He was just sort of standing there, no one coming up to him, and I was looking at that guy, and well, he's got a backstage pass, he must be important. And we were milling about the arena, and then we saw the same guy again, sort of like on the runway where we had to go to our seats. And again, he's looking at me and said hi to me, and I said hi back. Then during the show, after Queensryche, KISS came on, same guy with the poofed out hair on the side of the stage. It turned out it was Mark St. John. We never knew it at the time, but he was just milling about the arena. And it was kind of weird because Paul Stanley didn't introduce Bruce to the crowd. He was pointing at him and didn't say, oh, here's our substitute guy or our new guy. It was just sort of like, here's this guy. We couldn't tell it was, I was like, wow, that doesn't really look like the guy on the album cover, Mark St. John, but nevertheless, it was Bruce. So only a week or two later, I found out that, yeah, the guy milling about the arena was Mark St. John. The other thing is I've always been a fan of the many quaffs of Gene Simmons. And, you know, he had, you know, the Lick It Up hair was almost like his Ronnie James Dio look. And then, you know, I'm looking at the behind Marco there. He had that sort of thing going. It must be some sort of hair thing because he had just done the movie Runaway. And then, of course, like mid-tour, when Bruce was sort of officially in the band, he sort of had that Phyllis Diller thing going on, looked like a raccoon on his head. But when we saw him at Brendan in Bethlehem, I'd love to see a picture. I was looking for it today, looking for something today on the internet, but he had almost like something that looked like the Wedding Singer, like Adam Sandler. It was really close cropped and a little bit of a thing like a mullet on the back. And I've never seen that reproduced anywhere. And I'd love to see a picture of Gene, how I remember him for that show and that tour in Bethlehem. And it was really strange. I'd love to, that to me is like a KISS Holy Grail, Gene's hair. But, and, you know, there's many stories, you know, of course he had like that thing, headband going around his head to kind of keep it down. Right, exactly. And I'm one Chicon. I have like a comb over starter set. So I get it. But the point is, I was amazed by the many looks of Gene Simmons. As an album, you know, as a kid, I really liked it, spent a lot of time with it, loved Heaven's on Fire, played it in garage bands along with Lick It Up. It was great to hear on your local classic rock station, you'd hear Lick It Up as well as Heaven's on Fire, which was kind of cool. And, you know, and I think now going back and listening to it, my enthusiasm for the album is probably tempered a bit, as I've heard you say today, Marco and John, but it's sort of a fond memory in time. I would rate the album a 7 because of that fondness. And as part of a touring mechanism is one of those deals where, you know, they throw the album out there and they had a pretty good stage show and they built on the successes of Lick It Up. And it was sort of, I look at Lick It Up, Animalize, and Asylum as sort of like three of a kind. They sort of went together as a suite of albums and sort of as in their touring cycle where they cranked them out one after another and they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And this album just sort of was a great moment in time. So, you know, I look at it today as a fond 7. You know, as stated, Burn Bitch Burn is it's sort of ridiculous nowadays. Great riff, but, you know, kind of a ridiculous song. I think my favorite song on the album might be Get All You Can Take. Might be the favorite one. And the Gene songs are somewhat mediocre, but okay. So
Cool.
That's my review.
All right, 7.
Thanks,
So-
Nick.
On Gene's hair,
Good job, man.
those are wigs.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Did you? There's just a little side note, there's a video on YouTube where they play Germany during Crazy Nights, and they're backstage, and Gene literally shifts his wig.
Yeah. I'm actually going to throw it over to Martin next. So I kind of started doing your review from the 80s guide. I'm interested to see if you gone up or down. You gave it an 8 back then.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll leave that for a bit. But I love Nick's comment about this being a momentum album, because it definitely feels like Son of Lick It Up and doing things a little better. I'll go one further and say Creatures belongs in this group of albums together. I think the wheels fall off after Asylum, only for 2 albums, because Revenge is awesome. But I love Asylum, but this is probably second favorite in here. Asylum feels a little bit more like a serious, well put together album to me for some reason. Just better production, more well appointed, better drumming. I mean, I find a problem with these records, and this one definitely you hear it on the OTT song Under the Gun, and you also hear it on I've Had Enough Into the Fire, where the drums are treated with a little bit of way too much getting told to tone it down. It's a little bit like the whole Cliff Davies thing in Ted Nugent, where it's supposed to be all about the guitars and the vocals, and the rhythm section is kind of almost like purposely hobbled on these records. So it's kind of weird that way. So I don't think Under the Gun is a particularly good experiment in being OTT or wild or thrashy or whatever, like a Van Halen Get Up or a David Lee Roth Elephant Gun kind of thing or whatever, right? But I do love I've Had Enough Into the Fire for other reasons, for the great chord sequences and that. Heaven's on Fire is a perfect follow-up to the song Live It Up. Lick It Up. On Spotify, 114 million plays of that song. And then the next drop down is to like 2 million plays for what is it? For Thrills in the Night, which is also a great song. You know, Thrills, those big drums, right? And then everything else is lower than that. So Heaven's on Fire is like a massive, massive Kiss song, right? Burn Bitch Burn, I don't have much of a problem with. Lonely as a Hunter is the one I key in on as a Gene Simmons bass farts song, right? Just that, that thing that Gene does, that geometric, slow, loping, just swivel my hips sort of song. I hate those songs from him. But the rest of the Gene songs I'm pretty fine with on here. When the City Sleeps, pretty cool one. Murder in High Heels, kind of like a Motley Crue-ish sort of thing there, which I'm fine with that as well. But my favorites are definitely Thrills in the Night, Heaven's on Fire, I've Had Enough Into the Fire, Get All You Can Take, definitely. So the Paul songs are great on here. I think this is like an improvement on Lick It Up, which was a little bit too poppy and spare, I think, and even more hobbled in the production and drumming department. This one, I think they get more of that right. And like I say, I think the Gene songs pull up the side a little. I gave it an 8 in the book. I'd probably give it a 7.5 right now at this point. But then again, I just really, my heart tells me it's still an 8, and it's really high in the Kiss canon for me, because there's a lot of Kiss albums I don't like very much. Definitely Psycho Circus and Hot in the Shade and Crazy Nights. And then, Elder and those ones as well. Unmasked, but and even Dynasty, but these 4 in a row are pretty special. I would say Lick It Up is sort of like the almost like the Ace Frehley album of the 4, believe it or not, weirdly. And Creatures is the try harder heavy metal one, and then this one's kind of like the most exciting one, and then Asylum is more like the more sober one of all of them. So yeah, I'll go 7.5.
Thanks, Martin. I'm gonna throw it over to Christian next.
So Animalize. Kiss was the first band I listened to the entire discography. Destroy was the first album I listened to in full, thanks to my dad. So I'm pretty favorable to most Kiss albums. But this one is not really exactly a band effort. obviously you got Gene songs and you got Paul songs. And during the era, it's kind of a chore to keep track of who's in and who's out. You got Peter out of the band a little bit earlier, and Anton Fig in, and then Eric Carr and Ace out, and then Vinny in, and so far and whatnot. But you're kind of nearing the end of that era where you finally get Bruce in, and then that kind of lineup stays pretty consistent. But Paul and Gene did their fair share of songwriting. We actually have Desmond Child in, which is cool. He writes some of the best tracks on the album. I think the last song he helped out with was one of the songs off Dynasty, one of the big songs. I think I Was Made for Loving You, or Sure Knows Something. I think one of those. But I'm pretty in agreement with the group. I think the Paul songs are definitely the better of the songs. I think that's pretty obvious. In terms of this era, I think it kind of gradually got worse in terms of quality. I really love Creatures of the Night. Look It Up's definitely my favorite of the era. I think Look It Up's a really great album. But I think there's a huge drop off with Animalize. It's definitely their hair metal phase. They're kind of almost chasing the trends, which is kind of ironic because they're often cited as kind of one of the bigger pioneers of hair metal in the 70s. But as for the music itself, the opener's also obviously really great. I think Mark St. John, I kind of agree with John and Reed. He's kind of all show and no substance. I think one or two of his solos are pretty memorable, but I don't know. I'm not in love with him as a guitarist. And actually, he wasn't even really a fan of KISS when he joined the band. But obviously, it was a great opportunity, so why not jump on it? Under the Gun's also a really great track. All the Paul songs I really love. Of course, you have Burn Bitch Burn, and the infamous lyric that always gets talked about by the great wordsmith that is Gene Simmons. I think While the City Sleeps is probably the best Gene song, but overall, I would say every single Paul song is better than any of the Gene songs. Gene kind of just crapped out a bunch of demos, obviously, because he was doing movies at the time. And so that really kind of hit the album in a bad way. I think Loneliness the Hunter is completely filler. I'm not a fan of that song at all. Also, one thing to note is that this era is probably KISS at their peak of their musical prowess. Not exactly songwriting prowess, but like Paul's voice is impeccable in this era. You just listen to the opener of this album, Give Me More from Look It Up, the song Danger from Creatures of the Night. Paul's doing some really crazy things. He's really killing it on vocals. Obviously the drums, I really like Eric Carr as a drummer. I think he's a great drummer, probably the best one KISS had. But overall the album is definitely not my favorite from the era. Like I said, it kind of gradually got worse in the 80s. So I'd probably give this a 7 out of 10. But that said, I definitely like this album a lot more than I used to. It's definitely grown on me. But, like I said, it's just half of it's just pretty bad. Half of it's really good. And I like Heaven's on Fire. I think it's a great song. But yeah, I give it a 7 out of 10. So,
Nice.
So pretty good.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, we're all pretty much
Summation,
in line
Christian.
so far. Got one guy left. I'm going to throw it over to Joe and take us home, Joe.
I too, like Nick and John, am an original OG KISS fan. So KISS and Aerosmith are the two bands, no matter what they release, good or bad, I have to buy it because they are the bands that really got me in the hard rock and metal. And Alive was my album. And, they fell off the cliff. And then when they came back with Creatures of the Night, loved it. My band was back. What was really cool is not a lot of people liked KISS, but so they kind of fit in with that new wave of British heavy metal. They were kind of like our band again. Liked Lick It Up even more. I still do. I think Lick It Up is a phenomenal album, and Vinnie Vincent plays some great licks on there. Then Marco, our Wendy Williams WOW album was the follow-up. It's a KISS album. I was really pumped, and I love that album. You can watch that episode. And I was really hoping Ace Frehley was coming back because we knew Vinnie Vincent was out. So then KISS releases Animalize, and I was happy they were still doing hard rock. I was still true to the band, but as an album, it was sort of a letdown for me, and it still is. I believe Paul Stanley's songs are really good. I've Had Enough Into the Fire is a great opener, but not as strong as his, the previous two albums, and not as strong as the album Asylum. I like Asylum a lot better than Animalize. I think part of the problem is I think KISS needs a producer, and Paul Stanley produces this album, and you can tell it just, I don't know, it needs a filter. And thank God he didn't touch Guns N' Roses. That's all I have to say. Heaven's on Fire, I think, is a great song. I can listen to it constantly. I just think it's a great hit song. I love it. The Gene songs right off the bat, my friends and I, our little heavy metal circle, were like, these songs are terrible. Gene's just phoning it in, we can tell. Especially after the WOW album, when you hear Thief of the Night, the heavier version of it, we were expecting, meat and potatoes like that. And Lick It Up has those songs. Creatures obviously does as well. But yeah, these Gene songs, I skip over them. For when I first listened to them, I skip, put the needle on the next song to the next Paul Stanley song. Under the Gun's great. Thrills in the Night is really good. But again, they need a producer on this album. So as good as the Paul Stanley songs are, I don't think there's not they needed a filter. They needed Michael James Jackson back, or Bob Ezrin, or Eddie Kramer to make it a better album in my estimation. But the Gene songs are just awful. I can't listen to any of them. It's just it's like his vault. It's just demo. I think Christian, you brought that up. It sounds like a bunch of demos, and it's not good. And Mark St. John, awful. I can't. There's no vibe. There's no rhythm to it. It's just, and it doesn't fit. And they're trying to fit a trend. They're trying to be the Van Halen or a Dokken, and it just doesn't work for me. I was happy that Bruce Kulick was in the band, and I found that out through they had the MTV concert on December 8th, I believe. So then you found out it was Bruce Kulick in the band. I wound up going to see them on this tour with Queensryche. I had to drive up to Milwaukee because they couldn't sell enough tickets in Chicago, so they had to cancel the date. So I drove up to Milwaukee, I believe, on New Year's Eve to see Queensryche with KISS, and we knew Bruce Kulick was in the band. And I have a funny story about Bruce Kulick. When I met him, I mentioned to him, because I saw Billy Squier, before he was big, open up for Alice Cooper, and he got bombarded with junk. He got bombed off the stage, and his guitarist did like an eruption solo, and it settled the crowd down. And I knew Bruce Kulick was on Billy Squier's first album. So I brought it up to him, and I said, you saved, you stopped a riot. And he goes, that wasn't me. I didn't tour with Billy Squier. So all this time I thought that was the guy that was in KISS, but it was a different guitarist at that time. But Bruce Kulick's an amazing guy to meet. Just out of all the KISS members that I've met, or former KISS members, he's the coolest. Gene's cool too. But yeah, I give this album a solid 5. I thought it was a 5 when it was released, and I'll stick with it as a 5. Paul Stanley's songs are good, but it needs a producer. Mark St. John is a terrible guitar player. I can't listen to it. And Gene Simmons just phoned it in. It's awful, and you just skip over it. So Heaven's on Fire is a great song because there's no guitar solo on it, and it's a good, catchy song. But yeah, 5 out of 10 for me, and that's my rating. So
wow,
yeah.
Devoted KISS fan, harsh though. 5.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a letdown for me, especially after the WW album. And yeah. And I love Lick It Up. I absolutely love Lick It Up. I actually like Lick It Up better than Creatures. But I was so excited when Creatures came out that they were back playing hard rock metal. And then, then you had Lick It Up, and you had, as I said, the WW album. So this was a bit of a letdown for me.
Okay.
It's interesting because I agree with, it's interesting you feel that way, Joe, because I agree with Martin that like this Animalize doesn't feel too far off the beaten path from Lick It Up and Creatures of the Night to me. I mean, if you take like Get All You Can Take, you could push that back to Lick It Up or even Creatures. Switch that with Keep Me Coming from Creatures and nobody would notice. Like there's a lot of overlap over these ones. Go ahead.
I agree with you, but I feel they needed a producer for those songs. Yeah.
I agree.
It's too Paul Stanley, and it goes off into these weird, there's not a filter there that's needed. And that's what's lacking from Lick It Up going to Animalize on the Paul Stanley songs. That being said, I think his songs on Asylum are absolutely phenomenal.
And that drum beat, there's too many bass drums, and I've had enough Into the Fire, eh? It's just the bass drum is just hammering away this weird shuffle beat, and it just sounds so awkward, eh? It's just so filled up with too much drums, right? No groove.
I so rarely listen to the drums on an album. I'm a guitar guy, guitar and vocals. If the drums suck, I might notice, but if it's within decent parameters, I'm like, yeah, okay, it's got a drummer.
It actually strikes me as a hard drum beat to play, and harder than it needs to be, and it loses its groove because of it. And I think that's a problem with this whole thing, like you say, Joe. With producers, I think a producer would have changed a few things around and just added a little musicality to some of these things that they were doing.
Yeah. Let me throw out an idea for you guys, because when I think of KISS, I don't think that they ever recovered from doing the 4 solo albums. Like the first 6 albums are more or less, even though you've got different guys singing, they feel like they're all KISS songs, right? But then they do the solo albums, and after that, you've got Paul songs and Gene songs and Ace songs, and they never really cohese again.
I agree with that to an extent, but Ace's album and Paul's album are very KISS, I think. I mean, Ace's album is just phenomenal. I think it's more Dynasty where they just, you have the compartmentalized songwriting and playing on Dynasty, but when they did I Was Made for Loving You, where I grew up, they just fell off the cliff there and didn't recover till they released Creatures. So, I think it was a combination of the two. You had the solos followed up by Dynasty. Definitely.
Marco, who's doing the math on this?
So I actually have the average here, and we have a 6.35. 6.35. So we're pretty even keel. Most of us were like 6, 7. So
it's lower than I would have thought for a bunch of KISS fans. That's yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what Brett would have said if he was here. Actually, he sent me 10. He sent me a message and said if he was here, Brett was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, couldn't make it. He would have gave it a 3 out of 10. So, he's a big KISS fan too. You should see it. Yeah. I've seen pictures of his basement. It's unreal. So that would have lowered our score even more. I'm a big KISS fan. I'm a big 80s KISS fan. I love Asylum. I agree with Martin. I think Asylum feels more like an evolution, where I do kind of see these 3 as kind of being a trilogy. But this was awesome. It was great to have everybody here. It was fun to dive into an album like this I hadn't actually sat down and listened to for a while because I had a different opinion than I thought I was going to.
I have one question.
Yeah, go for it.
Since I mentioned KISS and Aerosmith are my 2 bands, are there bands, anyone on the panel, that you will buy their product regardless, just because you stay true to them, or you hope maybe they return to that original form? Yeah. Because KISS is that band. It becomes an addiction, because Alive just blew my mind, and I always buy their product hoping to get that euphoria, and it's never returned to me. But same thing with Aerosmith and Rocks, but yeah, no matter what they release, I have to buy it.
Yeah, no, I would have said KISS, but after Sonic Boom, I didn't buy Monster. Although I did see them on the End of the Road tour, because I am a KISS fan. I figured, why not? It's the last chance. But no, KISS would have been the one band that, I would have bought anything. But after Sonic Boom, I could hear Monster on YouTube and Spotify now, so I didn't need to buy it. But they would have been my band. But I kind of got old enough, and I don't know. I don't know if anybody else has a point of view on that.
Yeah, I think in the 70s and 80s, it was KISS for me. I think, and like I said, until about The Elder, and then I started moving on. I think the only band I probably would feel anywhere remotely close to that now would be, and y'all all laugh at me because I've mentioned it many a time, but it would probably be Wasp. But I mean, other than that, I don't really have a lot of go-to bands that I would really go, I gotta have that. I don't care if it sounds like reggae, country, opera music. I'm still getting it because it's Wasp or whatever, But yeah, that would probably be my only band. But Reed, go ahead. Yeah, I think you were going to say.
I was going to say if Wasp put out a reggae country album, I would actually buy it for once. But I'm a band loyalist, so I followed Dio no matter what Dio put out. Even during like the Strange Highways, Angry Machines years, bought anything Dio put out, Megadeth and Iron Maiden, and Jorn, but nobody but me knows Jorn. So Jorn, go listen to Jorn. He's fantastic. Sorry. But those four, buy them no matter what.
All right. Well, why don't we go around? If you have anything to plug, and if you hadn't mentioned one band you'd buy anything from, then throw it out there. But Joe, you have anything to plug? Anybody you want to say hi to?
No, I got nothing. I'm just happy to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. How about you, Reed?
Well, I'm net neutral these days, but I'll say John and I did a guest appearance on Peter Kerr's Rock Daydream Nation. So we got some other Patreon members getting together and doing some non-Patreon content. So come over and join us.
Nice. How about you, Christian? Did you get that YouTube page going or?
Not yet, but just on that last topic, I mean, there's no bands that I'm kind of that I make myself buy anything or anything like that. But for me, it's concerts because I haven't gotten to see all these bands live. But like right now, I'm actually thinking about making a 7-hour road trip tomorrow to see Deep Purple in Florida because there's probably a good chance I'll never get to see them if I don't go to that concert.
Do it, Christian.
Yeah, but yeah, there's plenty of bands that I'd love to see live. But no, yeah, that YouTube channel's not up yet, so nothing to plug. But my Instagram, like I usually say, it's Christian Call02, Christian COLL02. Yeah.
Thanks, Christian. How about you, John?
Other than I just did a Wasp video, just kind of showing my appreciation for the band, and I've got a couple other ideas in my head. It's just finding the time to do it. Like Reed said, Peter and myself and Grant Arthur, we had a chat on the top 5 Police songs. So that was a lot of fun. I was glad to do that, and looking forward to do some more type chats with that. But other than that, that's all I got. And I'm jealous of all those fans who got to go to that Animalize show at Stabler Arena, and I couldn't because I was like I was picked on for being a KISS fan in elementary school, and I didn't get to go to that show. But hey, it is what it is, I eventually got to see KISS, but man, it was I can only imagine how good that show was.
How about you, Nick?
Yeah, a couple things while we were talking. Someone sent me a picture of Gene at the Stable Arena in Bethlehem, and there he is. So I got a picture of him there. That's what he looked like. But actually, I have nothing to plug, but I forgot my little show and tell. I think I showed this to Marco before. There's my baseball tee. I can't wear it anymore because I weigh about 80 pounds more than I did when I was 14 years old. Nice show up.
Cool.
There you go. It's still
I saw so
That's
many
expensive.
kids walking with those shirts on at school. It drove me nuts.
Those are valuable.
Still got the hype sticker for the album.
Ooh,
Nice.
But, yeah, nothing to plug.
How about you, Martin?
Well, I guess I got to come up with another episode of the podcast on the weekend. I think I'm going to do the U.S. response to glam because the last one was about, early 70s UK glam. So I might do a U.S. response to the early 70s glam thing. I finished a book yesterday that I can't say anything about. It's because it's about a year away that it comes out. But I should have the UFO, a visual biography, and the Judas Priest, a visual biography in about 4 weeks or so. They're putting together that shipment right now from the UK. So yeah, martinpopoff.com for all the recent books.
Thanks, Martin. And if anybody wants to like and subscribe our channel, give us a like and subscribe. We also have our Patreon thing where you can join these conversations and tell us what you think about these albums. And we have our Ko-Fi account where you can support the channel without having to subscribe on a monthly basis. And we have our t-shirts at tpublic.com, and they often have sales. I think like once every other month or so they have sales. So go follow us over there if you want a Contrarians t-shirt. And other than that, we'll say, well, let's agree to disagree, and we'll see everybody next time.
All right. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, Marco.
Later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.